This is Grapplers Talk.
What is up, fans of Grapplers Talk? This is Dave coming at you with another episode, and we have an awesome guest here in the studio today. But before I introduce him, I just want to say thank you each and everyone for downloading the podcast, all the support, all the messages we get, all the love out there in the community. I appreciate it so much. It means the world to me. And we're going to keep coming at you with these episodes. And we're trying to get better and better and better each week. More interesting guests from all over the place. So this guest I've been real excited to have on for quite some time for multiple reasons. Not only is he one of the best grapplers that I personally have trained with, but he's a great friend and just an awesome human being. Introducing to you, Greg Salatti, man. What is up, brother?
What's up, Dave? How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Hell yeah, man. And I'm glad you're not the type of person that usually does these things, dude. So it means the world to me that you've finally broken down and done this.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, definitely not my jam, but I'm down to do it. Plus, this is kind of cool to talk about, all this kind of stuff. I've listened to a handful of them, and they're pretty fun guests, so
yeah,
might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, man, and it's cool. Like we get a lot of love on this thing, and everyone supports everybody on this, and we try to just spread the love in the jiu-jitsu community. But
that's all it should be.
Yeah, man, and that's what it's about. Like just uplifting one another, and we're all training. Like we're all still doing this thing, right? So it just benefits us as a group to uplift each other. So
totally. Yeah, let's make everybody better, That's how you do it. You got to compete against each other, but, do it obviously in the right way, and you don't have to talk shit.
Yeah. And so I want to get you on, right? A lot of people have talked about you. Some people have seen you. You're kind of mysterious because you're not a big social media guy. So
yeah, not my thing either. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Nothing wrong with that, right? I think that, like, if I could not have like Facebook and all that shit, like it's too late for me. I already have it, right? But if I was back in that time, I resisted Instagram for years. Like I've probably only had an Instagram maybe like 3 years.
Right.
Where it's been popular for a while, but you have resisted all of them, man.
I have. I mean, I definitely got involved with some of them very at a much younger age, obviously, but I never really kept up with it for like literally like 18, 19 years, something like that. I haven't messed with anything, but all my friends do. I'm kind of aware of some stuff. My wife does. I'm aware of like some things. It's I see how it could be kind of cool, but I also see how it could be different for everybody,
Dude, you know how many hours people spend on those sites alone?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, I watch enough TV. I don't need something else to, know. And I'm already got a ton of screen time just because I'm into fantasy sports. Yeah. So I already look at the phone a lot,
And something about you too, you're a reader.
I do read a lot too. Yeah.
You like to read those articles, and I remember back in the day we used to work together at a school, and hopefully statute of limitations.
This maybe like just go into this a little bit, Dave, before you go into that. Dave and I did work together. We're working together again now.
Yeah.
But I've known Dave since he was maybe 17.
Yeah. I was in high school still.
Right. Dave was still in high school, and I'm 38 now, and so I would have been 20 or 21 when I first met, like 20 and a half.
Yeah.
Is when I first met Dave or something like that. Yeah. So I've known Dave a very long time, and we've done everything under the sun together. And we've been great friends, and just like great friends or family, we've fought and competed against each other, and we still get along, and we know how to keep kind of let the friendship grow and keep going.
Dude, that's
and just like today, I just want to say this too, just before we get started. Like, a lot of people I know have always asked me if Dave and I are related, which is hilarious. Actually, we were at a liquor store today, and somebody asked us if we were brothers, but yeah, we're not. We're just friends, and we do hang out a lot. We might as well be family.
We also do look a lot alike.
Yeah. All white people do,
But for years, man, we even working at the school all that time ago, people were always like, "Are you guys brothers?" And we used to tell them, "Yeah," and mess with them. They were little kids. So you
shout out to old Ben Holt.
We really are brothers. Like when you look at it, like we're closer family than I haven't talked to my sister in a long time, but I talk to you regularly every day pretty much. So
Right.
It's amazing, man. And believe it or not, people out there, we met through jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
that is kind of the whole wrapping it all together. But
yeah, amazing.
back at the school, man, that was I don't even know what I was gonna say about the school, but we worked together and we used to have some fun.
Oh yeah.
And man, dude, like I'm happy you're on. I wanted to get into a few different things today, right?
Absolutely.
First of all, like the whole social media thing, that's amazing, right? Like that's something like, okay, everyone's going with the crowd, right? Everyone's like, oh, I want to follow the dude. Back
There's
in the
a lot
day,
of people
you
that find it
resisted
weird.
MySpace.
I did. I was definitely involved at a young age,
Yeah.
but I only was on there for a little while, where I actually
Yeah.
kept up with it.
Dude, everyone had MySpace in high school and
Yep.
even past that until it went away. But like, dude, you didn't even have a MySpace for the longest time. So
Yeah.
like that is savage, bro. Like you
Some
always,
people find it weird, but yeah, you know,
you carve your own path, man. Like
For sure.
you don't go along with shit. So
not always.
yeah, man, it's pretty unique, but you don't meet too many people our age, especially, that get into that. And but I wanted to get in and talk to you a little bit about your history, and I even want to go back to when you were a kid. Back in the day, as I know, you did Taekwondo, but I want to talk about how you got introduced to it, what made you do it, and then your growth into grappling after that.
So yeah, so I think like my main sports, like organized sports that I did as like a child, fairly young, like between 6 and 10, most likely. Like I can't quite remember every date, but between 6 and 10, I did either little league, baseball, or like soccer. And so those were like my only organized sports, and all I wanted to do as a kid, like from 5 on, was I had this very delusional dream that I was going to be in the NFL or something. Way too small of a guy, and I'm not fast at all, so I had nothing really going for me in that regard. So yeah, maybe like I was thinking about this because I know that a lot of people kind of bring up their martial arts history here. Somewhere between 10 and 11 is when I started Taekwondo. The reason I started Taekwondo was my cousin. He's like a month older than me, and we were real close as kids. He started doing Taekwondo, so that's the main reason I did it.
Okay, so you said you got into Taekwondo because of your cousin.
Right.
She's pretty similar in age.
Yeah, about a month older than me. The main reason he got into it is like his parents wanted him to get into some kind of organized sport. He wasn't really that interested in sports in that way.
Was he tough?
So his thing was when he was a kid, like we were major competitive. Like we did all the standard things that kids do, like rough and tumble, playing around.
Who won?
Playing every sport. So that's the thing is, like he was always a little taller and bigger than me. And he also, his weight fluctuated a lot. Like he would become like he could get heavy set at times, and then kind of lose it. And I think he just was going through these weird growing spurts.
Yeah.
But so there would be times where he would be able to beat me, and then there'd be a lot of other things that I would beat him. And so it was really competitive, and like we both never really knew, like always, But he was really good about just kind of messing with me and like holding me down. He's real big into wrestling, WWE.
Okay.
Which I know you are. So real big. Wasn't
like
my
this
jam.
kid.
Yeah, it wasn't my jam, but he like for his birthday every year, he wanted to watch, the WrestleMania or whatever it was.
Royal Rumble.
Yeah, whatever was happening in June for WWE back in the day, like in the mid 90s.
SummerSlam in June.
Yeah, so something like that, yeah. So he was always more into that. So finally they got, his parents got him into martial arts, a Taekwondo place. It was Pacific Coast Martial Arts.
Phil Torres, right?
At the time it was Garmany and Phil Torres. They were together. I know that a lot of people should know those names.
Dave Garmany.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
So I started just for my cousin, and I definitely wanted to beat him. And so my parents thought it'd be a good idea, too, if my brother came and did it. He's a little younger than me, and he did pretty good, too.
Wow.
But so I think, and then I was trying to think about it, I think I stuck with it for close to it's somewhere between 3 and 3.5 years, something like that. where I was going pretty consistently, like at least like probably 3 times a week, like or more. Like we got real into it. So we moved up in belts pretty fast. And then so I think around like 13, I got like basically what they called senior black belts at the time, but it was so it was like a senior red belt, which is right under black belt, you know, in their system at the time.
Right.
I didn't keep up with Taekwondo belting after that, so I don't know. I'm sure it sounds funky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was like basically you do like a 6-month warm up, and then you have your final like black belt thing, and then you get your black belt.
Yeah.
And they would make it real big. You would compete against like your own teammates there. They had you like just like doing a bunch of different moves, and it was a real big thing they did.
Did you guys ever compete like against other academies or anything of that nature?
So like the only that stuff kind of did happen, but mostly the only stuff I did was I competed for my age and weight class and my belt, like in the sparring stuff, like I mean not sparring, but the actual like fighting with all the gear on. Yeah. To me, it's sparring.
Yeah,
because at the time it was a more.
It's not a full contact.
It's sport martial art. At the time, it's not like what Joe Rogan was doing. Like this was like the later, closer to the 2000s. And especially for my age, for my age at the time too. You know, I was like 11, 12, 13. And so I competed at like quite a few different belts, and then I made it to the Junior Olympics twice.
Oh wow!
Once in Kentucky and once in Vegas. I didn't do very well when I went there, but in California I did okay for
travel to those places at that young of an age, bro.
Yeah, and I did get gold in California. Like that's
that's what got you there, right?
Right. Yeah, correct. And then it's like after that, it's kind of up to you if you want to go and compete there. And so I went like 1 and 2 in each the Junior Olympics.
So in California, right? You're technically like a state champion, right?
Yeah, it was like twice at some point, either between 11 and 13. I was twice in my weight class, which I think was just under 100 pounds. I forget the exact weight. Yeah. I have some stuff at home. If I really looked, I have it either in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did get gold, and I remember we competed in the Bay Area somewhere. I believe it was San Francisco, like for the state tournament.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And so like getting into Taekwondo, right, and getting into martial arts. You've always been a sports kid too, right? You were into football,
right?
And,
so one of my major regrets in life is like at like around 13, I decided, hey, I got to get into football here. It's getting late. Let me go my 8th grade year and play Pop Warner.
Yeah.
And so basically, I was trying to do both during that, like getting ready for the black belt stage. And then I said, I got to go all in football. And I just never went back to Taekwondo again, which is like a major regret of mine. But yeah, Taekwondo was awesome. It made me incredibly flexible. The discipline involved in it, like I would just recommend martial arts to anyone just because of those simple facts. And then like competing at that young of an age, I really think helped me in wrestling later on.
Yeah, absolutely it did. But like that's pretty cool. But there's something unique about you too. Let's call out the cookie in the room, right? Greg has one hand. So doing these types of sports and things, like, yeah, they're hard, but they're probably twice as hard for you to play football, right?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, like not to sound like an asshole or anything, but like I've always had this to have to overcome. And so in some things I like am fully aware this is like really difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff that it just kind of seems like if I just put my head down and grind, eventually I'll overcome it.
It's we had Rocky Reyes on not that long ago, and he talked about it, and like, you know, you've always, like, most of the time people are around you, they don't even notice, right?
Because a lot of people tell me that, you know. I mean, it's very kind of them, you know, whether they mean it or not. But yeah. But
like most people don't even notice because you're so like you're more capable than most humans. Like that's. I think
most people who get in jiu-jitsu are well more capable, you know, like than the average human.
Yeah, but like.
But thank you, Dave. I appreciate that.
It's definitely like you've never let anything stop you. So. Going in to play football, that's going to be a tough thing, right? You're already established in Taekwondo.
Yeah, and I didn't look at it like that at that age. I looked at it like, Taekwondo will always be there. And I thought, I'm going to go be a star football player, which is definitely, I've set the bench, barely played. Like, there was definitely some highlights. It was cool to be a part of a team. Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot. And I don't necessarily know that I would trade it, but looking back, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, but I definitely was not speedy enough. These guys had been playing forever, a lot more athletic than I was, just from a football standpoint, much bigger, taller, like I'm just like barely average, barely.
Yeah, but like it is pretty cool, like going into that, like you know what I mean, but the whole major thing about it is you wanted to be an NFL football player.
Yeah,
so
as a delusional little kid,
it,
yeah, totally.
right?
Yeah, I had to try it, and then I kept with it from like freshman and then into my sophomore year.
Yeah,
and at that point, I realized like I'm obviously like much better at grappling and wrestling, so I'm just gonna stick to this, because it's really not that fun sitting the bench. And just like realizing like, there's like the main reason I'm not playing is because these guys are much, much better than me. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool to help them out or whatnot, but I don't know that I was helping them out much. You know?
Well, you guys were an insanely competitive school too.
Yeah,
like
Lincoln
in that time, like they had Lewis Rankin and like all these famous.
I didn't make it even to varsity. We're talking about
but they had a really established football program,
big time.
I remember being like I think I was a freshman or maybe even 8th grade, and I used to see like the SJTV, and it was always Lincoln, man, and the announcers were biased as fuck. They'd always be like, "Oh my gosh, Lincoln's so amazing," and like you guys had a good football program.
Yeah, my freshman year, I believe the varsity won like the state championship or whatever.
So like, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of reasons, like that football was tough.
Beyond just the physical like limitations. Yeah, totally. Yeah, like even if I was decent, I mean, I'm sure it would even be hard.
Oh yeah, you got a ton of great athletes coming out of that school. But
so I basically gave up the martial arts, got into football like that 8th grade year, Pop Warner, and then did freshman football. I started at Lincoln, went to Lincoln High School, and then. After football was over, I realized like I want to try other sports. And honestly, like my whole life, I can't tell you how many times I heard an adult tell me that I should try wrestling. And my idea of wrestling from a young age all the way up until basically maybe 8th grade was like, I just really thought it was WWE.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea about collegiate wrestling. My family wasn't really into sports. Like I'm like basically the motor of when it becomes a sports. Like my family isn't really into it. Like they're like great if you want to do it, but they're not going to push it or come up with ideas like, hey, you need to do this. So then after freshman football, I needed to find a sport. I was like, wrestling sounds great because I've never played organized basketball, and once again I have one hand. I'm not going to play basketball.
But you're pretty damn good at basketball too. Yeah,
Dave and I have had some fun stuff with basketball, but non-organized. Nobody's calling a travel or whatnot.
Street hoops.
But so I was like, what other sport could I do at the time? And then I started kind of eyeballing wrestling as the freshman football season was winding down. And so because of the freshman football season, I got into the wrestling late. Like I think I missed the first couple weeks of conditioning. It may have been like,
ooh, that had to have sucked, right?
Well, because of football, I was already in good shape, and then just like I'm always kind of in decent shape. I just always have been, and so that wasn't a big deal. But then like they were just starting the mat time. Like maybe I had missed the first week of that or first half week of that. I can't quite remember, but so I got in kind of late to it, and then just went from there. And then I basically was like, wow, this is a fucking incredible sport. You know what I mean? Like. I definitely had a lot of ups and downs. My freshman year, I was only on JV. I did like 130 and 135 was my weight class. Real lean, real skinny, and I just had a lot of fun. And I remember like having some success against other freshmen who had never done wrestling. I remember getting my ass kicked by Bobby Curley, and he was in 8th grade. So there was like I said, a lot of ups and downs, and just having a lot of fun. And my coaches were really awesome at the time. It was Mello, who has a gym now in jiu-jitsu, awesome guy. He was he was the assistant coach, and the head coach was Val Kaepernick, which now you're probably going to become more familiar with because you got on that Facebook thing you were talking about.
Yeah, shout out to Ernest for inviting me to the Lincoln Alumni Wrestling group on Facebook. I feel special, man. I'm
right,
and with the good people, man.
And so actually I may have that. So that first year it was Sandler, and then the assistant coaches were Val and Mello.
Yeah.
I believe that's how I went my freshman year.
Do you remember like the first time?
And Sandler's like a big name in wrestling locally. Like he's coached either Lincoln or some other school or Delta for like the past 35 plus years. Yeah, like it may be more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but he's been at Delta forever.
And it doesn't sound like he's leaving anytime soon.
No, he's still young, and I mean he still loves it, and I think that's amazing. He's a great coach, great guy.
Yeah. You remember your first time walking into the wrestling room, like stepping on the mats?
At Lincoln, yeah, totally, man. I mean, wrestling, like really, I did fall in love with it. Like, if I could go back and change my entire life, like I would have started at 5 or 6, and I just wouldn't have cut the weight. Like that's always what people complain about the most as kids. I remember that, weight cutting was a big thing when I went, and I'm sure it was even worse before.
Yeah. And it's probably a lot different now, right?
Totally different. They do a bunch of different things I don't even know fully. I know that they were messing around with hydration tests, like when I was like just ending my career.
Yeah, they were doing them when I was in high school.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how that. And then weight classes have changed, and even like basically the tournament names have changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so freshman year is like it's like the 2001 year or something like that for wrestling. So I start. It's like in November-ish is when I start.
So tell me about your first match. How did that like go?
I mean, to be honest, like my freshman year, maybe because it's a bit traumatizing, like losing that much. I don't remember my first match exactly. Freshman year, I do remember wrestling at like quite a few tournaments. I do remember wrestling sporadically in dual meets, but I don't remember. For some reason, I don't remember wrestling 100% of the time in dual meets. And I just remember there was a lot of bodies for the JV.
Oh yeah.
And I just, like I said, a lot of ups and downs, like I said,
Wrestling?
And then JC that year was, so I believe my freshman year, he was a senior, I believe. And so his team not only won the state championship for football, so he came in hecka late for wrestling. And me having no idea about wrestling, like not really knowing the backstory of like the Curly's like athletic ability, then just starting to realize like, oh, I got my ass kicked by Bobby. And then now JC's coming in like, holy crap. And then he gets second in state, you know, which is like, I mean, not many people do that at heavyweight. I mean, and JC is just an incredible, like, grappler. Incredible.
Yeah.
Very talented. And so that was just like amazing to watch. And I fell in love with the sport. Like, I just felt like I was watching like the most amazing documentary you could ever watch. As like a freshman, as a kid, like, whoa, what did I walk into? Like,
well, and wrestling tournaments can be intimidating too because there's like a lot of action going on, right?
There's ton, yeah. And so that's kind of
a lot of people.
They're like, they weren't in some regards, because I had done the Junior Olympics. Like that's kind of how that setup was for the Taekwondo. So it never really bugged me. That didn't get on me, but it is very interesting when it's big time wrestling in an area or a big tournament, and there's 32 or 64 teams. Like there's parents and schools like all involved, yelling, screaming. It can get intense. Yeah. And there's 16, 30 mats, whatever it is. How big the tournament we're talking about.
Right. And and with wrestling, it's such a sport where it's like all the attention's on you, right? Like you can't blame anyone else.
So that's kind of what I didn't realize. Like that's really what I liked about Taekwondo was like, I knew that Taekwondo, I didn't like the aspect of what they called it pumse. I don't know all the terms now, but they called it pumse. And basically it was just like the technique and real like kind of meditative, slow movements, that you have to do in a specific order. Mm-hmm. And I was terrible as that as a kid, probably because I really didn't care about it, but they gave you videos and they made you study it and whatnot. And I did just enough to basically pass their test, but I was only in it to like spar, basically, oh, you mean I get to put on this gear and I'm protected and I get to go at it. And so anyways, I really like that aspect. And then when I got into wrestling, I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of very similar. I like the aspect of like, let's find out who's better, like mano-a-mano, one-on-one, know? And like, it's all on me to make the team or win or lose. It's, who can I blame but really myself. Yeah. I like that aspect. Sure, there's other factors, like I'm sure there could be a terrible ref or this or that, but if you're really looking at it 99% of the time it's you and the other person, and you're probably the reason you lost, or that guy's just incredibly good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So by the time your sophomore year comes around, you said you were pretty much getting over football, right? Realizing you're probably not going to go
right. Like, hey, I'm not
way
going to play
further with this, right?
And I don't even know if I want to play my junior year. Like, what's it worth? You know,
yeah.
like, will I even make the team? You know?
Yeah.
And if I do, I'm going to sit the bench.
Yeah.
So anyways, sophomore year, get into it. It's not like I did any extra wrestling in between there, but I did after wrestling my freshman year. I decided to do pole vaulting, and part of the reason was I couldn't figure out what else I wanted to do sports wise. I just, in my head, I thought I'm gonna try hella different sports. Like I just, for some reason, that's how I was. So I did that my freshman year.
Did you like get up and everything over the things?
I did, yeah, I did. I like hit certain markers, but I was not that good. You know, I was
Dude,
like
I
bottom, like in the 3 or 4 tournaments I did. I was like, you know, I wasn't last, but I got in like, you know, 7th or 8th place. I think there was a couple like dual meets like they had. I might have like beat out 1 or 2 other guys.
Wow.
You know? But the rest of them I got beat often. Like there was only a certain height that I could hit, and
yeah.
to be honest, it was mostly probably because I was like psychologically I probably was scared. Like I just remember like getting up that high, I could get like the technique down, but at a certain level after around 15 feet, I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm way up here.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a long ways down.
So I did that, and you know, I did the season. Part of the reason I did it was Sandler was the coach, and he was asking guys to do it, and I didn't know what other sports to do. I was like, oh, let's do another sport. So that's why I did it, and I gave it a try. And then my sophomore year, so boom, we do football, back into football.
Yeah.
We do wrestling. I get into wrestling, and for whatever reason, I developed a little more, gained a little more weight. I was weighing like around the 150-ish area,
so
like
about 20 pounds, right?
Like naturally, and prior to that, I was like more in the 135, 140 range. Just naturally gained it, nothing crazy, didn't do anything. So get into sophomore year, and then I start to kind of just get better during practice before the season starts, and then I start to realize like, oh wow, there's a chance I could be on varsity this year. So then we have the wrestle offs, and sure enough, I'm able to get on varsity. And I go 145 my sophomore year.
So you're on varsity sophomore year?
Sophomore year, 145. I'm only cutting, and at the time, I say this like, I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail, but at the time I was probably cutting like 5 to 7 pounds most times, like for the weight. So
to
I
wrestle
was
at 145.
Yeah, so I was weighing like 152-ish.
That's not
naturally.
bad.
Yeah, not too bad.
Could you have wrestled like you were saying one of your things like you wish you didn't cut so much weight, right? Could you have wrestled at that 152 and been strong at that division?
My sophomore year, I don't know, to be honest. But my junior and senior year, for sure, I could have been strong.
Yeah,
for sure. But I was just once I got to 145, for whatever reason, I got stuck on 145 because I did it the rest of the time in high school. But so sophomore year, we wrestle. I get a little better. I'm definitely gaining confidence. I feel like there's some guys around me who started as a freshman, all in different weight classes.
Bobby Curley should be there as a freshman, right?
And then Bobby Curley's there as a freshman. There's just some guys around me. You can kind of feel we're building something. And then our coaches at this point are like our Val and Mello, as far as I remember, like just solely. It was just those guys. Val was the head coach and Mello was the assistant coach. And they had a really good thing going, and they knew how to kick our ass. And we were like, they really believed in beyond just teaching us stuff, but they really believed in like when I first heard this term in regards to an athletic venture was attrition wrestling, and they got it from like Dan Gable.
Yeah.
He's he goes into it. He's big on it, and I just really like that idea. And then they just pushed us and grinded us on conditioning, like. We did a lot of technique, don't get me wrong. Like there was just our sophomore year, we did like, I don't even know if it was necessarily legal, like looking back on it, like we did 3.5 hour practices sometimes, starting at 3 or 3:30, I forget exactly when.
Yeah.
And we would go hard, and it was a lot of a warm up, and you got a real good sweat, and the warm up was a workout. Maybe you went on a run or whatnot, and then we did technique for a long time, and then we went live, and then we did a lot of conditioning, a lot of different styles of conditioning, and it really hardened us. And
wrestlers are the toughest, man.
So we had that kind of attritional, like we're gonna outlast you beyond just trying to be like better athletic than you. We're gonna be in better shape.
Yeah.
So anyway, sophomore year then comes around, I get better. I'm a starter on varsity at 145, and then I got third in the league tournament at the time. And then
so where's league at in like the grand scheme of things?
It was just at the time, which is now different.
Yeah, they've changed
it. was
it.
the 10 schools and the 209
SJAA
essentially.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's what they called it,
Yeah.
the SJAA, and it was 10 schools at the time.
Now they've added like tons of high schools in Stockton, and then they got
split up the
Lathrop
divisions,
and all these more schools, more people. So things have changed tremendously since those days.
And then I went to the next tournament, and at the time it was called subsection. So, like I don't know how many it was, either the first 3 or first 4, maybe the first 2 in the weight class went to that next level, to the subsections at the time, which now I think is called sections. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, they changed
I could
it.
be wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went there and I did terrible. Lost. I 1-2 or 0-2, like went out pretty quickly. It was just, the competition got better and I was not ready apparently. Yeah. And also like, it's a long wrestling season, man. And I did have trouble with that. Like at the end of seasons, like I definitely sputtered like when it mattered at times. Part of it was cutting the weight, and part of it was like, just like, this is like a long ass season. Like it beats up your body.
How often were you
At least
cutting?
for me, it did.
How often were you cutting to that 145? Like how, as far as wrestling tournaments?
Yeah,
and everything?
it would vary, but like sometimes it was 3 times a week, sometimes it was twice a week, sometimes it was once a week.
And for how long after that? So how long's the season, right? How many months?
It starts like at the time, I think it was like the middle or end of November, or maybe the beginning of November was like when a tournament or a first dual meet was, or preseason. I don't know. So it goes from like November, and then if you go far into it, you're the beginning of March. If you go kind of the end of the regular season, it's like the beginning of February, middle of February at the time.
So like that can't be good for your body at that young of an age.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, my sophomore year, I wasn't cutting weight. Like the guys that beat me were like juniors and seniors. They were older, they were more effective. They had been in it longer. They're veterans, and they were decent enough. So then my sophomore year, I decided I want to like try tennis after wrestling. And I did not make the team, It was just something to do to keep in shape, another thing. And then then I kind of went back to pole vaulting for like a week, and I was like, it's just not worth it. Yeah. So I was like, after that, finally, I was like, let me just 100% focus on wrestling,
Yeah.
But I just always was down to work out or be active.
Yeah, you've always been a very active.
I'll try a different sport. Like I was okay at tennis. I was definitely not obviously good enough to make any team,
Yeah.
I mean, as a...
Well, dude, I can't.
The last time
there
was just a time in my life I had a friend and we just played tennis like maybe, I don't know, like it just seemed like maybe 15 times a year for a couple years. Yeah, he would just want to play, and I just felt like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah,
but it was just a pipe dream, delusional, like even thinking I could make the team. But anyway, so then junior year comes along, and then I just do wrestling. So I finally just kind of get with the conditioning program, do wrestling. I didn't do anything different. I come in weighing probably about 160, 165 at the time, naturally.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm going 145s. I was stuck on it, and so I cut the weight, got down, and I was probably, at that time, I was cutting probably about 10 to 12 pounds now to make weight each time.
Wow. Yeah, that's. I mean, if you combine all that, right, you're cutting. The first.
It wasn't healthy. It was probably stupid, but like there was like, that was just the wrestling mentality that I walked into.
You weren't the only one doing that. No.
And in my head at the time, I really thought like, oh, this is how I'm going to be my strongest. Like, there's not really there's not somebody, if I cut down to 145, that's going to necessarily be like crazy stronger than me. That's what I kept thinking. But what I didn't really look at until later on was like, wow, you're like cutting yourself way down unhealthily.
Yeah.
And then so you're at your like weakest trying to beat somebody who's could be at their strongest, or they're doing the same thing you are. At the time, a lot of guys were cutting weight. So it's like you're basically like wrestling at your weakest is really not the brightest thing to do.
Yeah, no, never.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan said it recently on one of his podcasts. He's like, I think it was with Israel Adesanya. He said, I think it's crazy that we make these guys lose all this weight, and the next day they're fighting in a cage.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
dude,
what's nuts is in wrestling, you do it that day too.
Yeah.
At the time, you did it that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the other thing is like, beyond all that, it does create like, that is a very disciplined person at that time. You know what I mean? They're going to wrestling practice, they're doing school, they're cutting weight. Like
they're
you
working
are like
out
hyper,
constantly.
you're hyper focused on one thing. It may not be great, but you are learning like a lot of discipline and like how to like prepare for.
It's almost like a military type discipline in a way.
Probably, you know, I've never been in the military, but I would think so.
You see videos, like it's pretty intense, you know, but like it really is a different style of, you know, the pole vaulters aren't doing that shit.
Probably not. Maybe the best in the world, you know. I don't know, but
there's a difference, man. And I've always said I think wrestlers are the toughest people on the planet, you know, and you know, something I do got to say about the Lincoln guys is like you guys are all still close to this day. Like you got guys like Niles and, you know, and Sean and
that is something like my longest friendships have been with grapplers, essentially, either wrestlers or jiu-jitsu guys. Like it's just kind of natural.
Yeah, it's wild, but like I mean, you know, not everyone stayed wrestling or not everyone tried to pursue it after that, but you know, it was definitely some good relationships in there, and those guys are even my friends now, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, like we talked about it, like my sophomore year, Bobby, like literally Bobby's been like a grappling partner of mine, like basically my entire life. You know, it's kind of nuts. Like to have access to that has been amazing. You know what I mean? Even like being able to have like JC's much bigger than me, obviously, but he would like let me play, let me roll with him, teach me stuff. Yeah. Like I learned a lot from the Curlies. I learned a lot from Mel. I learned a lot from Val.
I still learn from the Curlies to this day. Like if I'm ever in a room with JC, you know, he'll still work with me. And even my early days at Shingu, like when I was struggling with something, JC and Bobby were always there to like help you out, help you get better, right?
And then what's crazy is then my junior and senior year, you know, we had both Bobby and Johnny on the team. You know, so we had two curlies. Yeah.
You always had two curlies.
There was always, essentially always two curlies. But yeah, so my junior year, then I did a little better. Got first in the league tournament. Made it subsections. You know, did terrible again 1 and 2. I'm not. It's not like it was.
We're
not crazy.
Bragging.
Yeah, I'm not trying to brag. It's not like it was a crazy like thing. But then did 145 senior year. Same thing. Got a little bigger. Now I'm like 165, 168.
Yeah.
Cutting a little more weight. It was like, I'm like, no lie, like 12, 15 pounds a cut when I did it.
How'd you do it at the time? Do you remember?
Yeah, a lot of like not eating, a lot of like very like militant, like calorie watch, like only 500 calories today, workout, you know, a lot of water watching, a lot of sauna, a lot of running. A lot of all the shit that you do that only making you weaker. But yeah, a lot of running, a lot of like walking extra steps, like let me park hella far, you know, just random shit. Just to try to get more activity in and cut the weight. You know, you basically have an eating disorder at this point. You know.
Not many people will admit that, but it's very true, man.
So then wrestled, and then senior year got first again at 145, which was like just very cool to do. But what was even cooler is there was a guy, Mondo, who you've met. He got 3 in a row in his weight class. I forget which weight it was. It was like it may have been like it was a couple different weight classes, but he did 3 years of a championship in a row, which was awesome. And he partied with us, hung out with us, and he's a really good fucking grappler too.
It's ironic you said his name because man, that was very weird that you said his name, because like literally before I showed up here, I was looking at my phone. I was looking at an old Facebook memory, and it's something like, "Oh, I don't want to be at work today." And I click on it, and there's 3 comments. One was Myra. The other one was Armando.
That's from the past. Wow, yeah.
And I'm like, who's like Armando? And I'm trying to remember. And I click on his thing, and I was like, oh, that's Mondo.
Yeah.
Right? And I like recognize him right off the bat. And I'm like, man, it's been a long time since I've talked to that guy. You just brought him up, man. Right. It's pretty weird.
So yeah, then I go to subsections, and I do just enough to get like 5th and make it to sections. I got 4th.
Yeah.
4th or 5th. I can't remember. No, I got 5th. And then went to sections, which is now like the tournament before state is what it was then. I forget the name now. But yeah, then went to sections, did terrible, you know, 0-2, didn't do good. Once again, upping the competition. I don't do very well the first time.
So talk to me about this, right? You know, we hear grapplers, Rocky mentioned it, but like, you know, you've had it a bunch of times. Like, how was it wrestling people? Did they like have like a weird reaction to you having one hand?
It's interesting to hear like Rocky say that, because then that kind of happened with when I just competed recently in what was
World
it?
League,
World Jiu-Jitsu League. Yeah. It kind of the same kind of reaction happened with my first opponent. And he even came up to me and kind of said that. It's kind of weird to me. Like, yeah, they get weirded out. I guess like maybe they're just like unsure because I have one hand. I know that it can be strange to people. Like I've seen little kids' reactions. Like they could be like, ooh, you know, like maybe they're like, I don't want to touch it. And now they have to. They're kind of forced into something. I get it, like from that perspective, but at the same time, I've had a lot of people just act like no issue and beat the shit out of me.
Right.
So I don't know if that can be like, it may throw you off your game, but then it like makes you wonder like, why is that throwing you off your game?
Yeah.
You know? But beyond all that, I've had people either freak out or just weird things.
If people really roll with you, like they realize right away, like that's something you got to be careful of, man. Like you know how to use it the right way.
And I used to be real bad too in my younger years, especially wrestling at like Lincoln, like probably my freshman, sophomore, and even maybe the beginning of my junior year. Like there would be times where I would just basically like allow somebody to shoot a double on me just so I could crossface the shit out of them and get my arm like in their eye socket or in the bridge of their nose and their eye socket and just cause a lot of pain. Like I made people cry. And like then I kind of realized like this is all kind of a force bully kind of move. Like I gotta be a little more slick than that.
Yeah.
But it's always there if necessary. You know,
dude, my throat's still fucked up from like last week or something. Like you got me in a choke, and dude, my shit's still sore from you fucking jamming it in.
There was times where like that's all I could do to Bobby. Like when he was just like that much better than me when we were younger, and that's all I could do to him. And he says to this day like that's part of the reason he has a sinus problems. Like I feel bad if that is true. But damn,
that's funny.
But
man.
the crossface can be deadly, and I mean, I can definitely use the nub to my advantage in some ways, but there's other times where it's definitely a disadvantage.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely, man. And so after high school, right? You had a good high school run. I'm sure you learned a lot with.
Yeah, I mean, we went into a long detail. I don't know. I just to kind of show you that, like, just so people listening, like, I'm a fairly legitimate wrestler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And then after that, you wrestled at Delta College.
So that's kind of like, I didn't go beyond like junior college, but it is definitely once again a higher level. It's not like. This isn't D1 we're talking about.
Yeah, but a lot of people regard junior college wrestlers as very elite wrestlers.
Right. And there are some extremely elite wrestlers, very talented wrestlers. And it is, once again, a different level. And I can tell you, like, I'm so happy I did those 2 years because it made me a much better grappler than I ever would have been having the 4 years in high school.
Yeah.
And it made me fall in love with the sport like even more, and I definitely like progressed and got a little better as a wrestler, and it was just a lot of fun, And then Bobby ended up being on my team for 1 year.
Yeah,
there was at 140, Benny Garcia was a state champion my second year in wrestling. Just amazing guy, and he's in the room every day. I got to work with him. I got to work with like Kenny Keller, who was Osborne's like best friend. Osborne was on my team. Like these are all people I know who either did jiu-jitsu at one point or are still doing jiu-jitsu or are black belts in jiu-jitsu. So they've, I've made a lot of very close type friends just from the grappling and wrestling community. So I just have all love. Just all love, and I'm obsessed with it,
Yeah.
So I like talking about it.
Dude, so when did you get introduced? I know Mello kind of is the one that got you into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
When did he introduce you into that?
Yeah, so my senior year in high school, just as like the season was ending for wrestling, I wanted to get in a little more work, grappling wise, and so Mello took me and Bobby to, and once again I don't even think that's legal, but so we would after practice some nights, like this happened maybe 4 or 5 times, just like kind of at the end of the season to get in more work. Mello would take us to California Street, or we would meet him there.
Tom's Market.
A lot of the time, he would drive us there.
Yeah,
right there by Tom's Market at night, like fairly late at night, like always after 9.
Yeah,
and then he would either bring in one guy, I always forget his name, but a real skinny like OG that had been doing Shingu and been with him, and who had wrestled, I believe, at Lincoln 2 back in the day, just like Mello.
Yeah.
But real nice guy. And then he'd bring him in, and then we would roll. We'd do a little wrestling. And then we would mess around with the what's that machine thing again?
Chair.
The chair. We We'd mess around with the chair.
So
we'd
let me lay a
attempt
little
with
background
that.
on that.
We'd attempt with that. That thing is so freaking hard. That thing is nuts.
So
I don't even think I got the full rhythm or motion of it quite.
Yeah.
But all the stuff I did do killed the shit out of me.
Oh, dude, so if you look on Ronin Jiu-Jitsu's Facebook page or Instagram page, you got to look real deep into the archives. But there's a unique chair. I was told by Ernest that it was developed by a wrestler for a wrestler.
Right, which makes complete sense.
There's only one or two of them left. I think there was a total of 2 or 3, but now it's down to like 1 or 2.
And Mello's got one.
And Mello's got one in his gym. I believe it belongs to Ryan Murphy, who's a stud of a wrestler and a great jiu-jitsu coach at Crosley Gracie. And but this chair is very unique, and it'll make you move in certain types of ways. It's like got a weight bearing system that'll spin on you, and a lot of people do different drills with weights in it and stuff like that. And Shingu Fighter had one back in the day on California Street in the back. They had a little workout area, and that chair was in there, and it was such a unique tool. And not many people to this day have even seen one or know anything about it. But I'm telling you, this chair is very cool.
Yeah. So this was like at the end of very, very, very end of like 2003 or beginning of 04. So that's like the very first time. So then after that, then we'd kind of take a little breather, and then Mello would like show us a few little things, and we'd do some jiu-jitsu stuff. Real super basic, fundamental. And then he'd like mess around with us. We'd go live just to get some work, and then he'd just obviously kill us right away.
Yeah.
But you know, we would kind of learn some positions and stuff. So I did that like 4 or 5 times, like basically to get more work for the very end of wrestling season. And then I think I did it once or twice, like just after that with Bobby.
Yeah.
Always went with Bobby. And then there was kind of a break, and then I just immediately got into wrestling, and then at Delta, and then I think in between that like first and second year of Delta wrestling season, I may have done it a few other times just with Mello and Bobby, just to get in some more work. It's not like honestly, like I never looked at it as like I was doing jiu-jitsu. I always just looked at it like I'm just getting just
extra
more work,
in,
some cardio work, some more work, more grappling stuff. I never looked at it like that. I think Bobby definitely had the idea to transition to fighting, obviously. So that may have been like the seed that grew out of it. I don't know exactly what Bobby was thinking. That may have been the reason he wanted to kind of push for that and do that. I'm not 100% sure, but regardless, we were doing it. And then Bobby did wrestling that next season, my second season. And then after that, we started going to Shingu kind of more, because now JC was kind of starting to think about fighting. He had come back from Fresno, and then now Bobby was thinking about kind of transitioning to that. It seemed like, so we went to Lodi at the Japanese
Center, yeah,
right. So that's where Dave and I first met, and so that was like had to have been like 06, 07-ish, maybe late 06 into 07, maybe early 07. I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
something like that.
I don't remember what exactly happened, but I know for a fact when I had went to Shingu on California Street, it was somewhere in 2005. And I remember I went a couple times, and then I never went back. I wasn't working. I couldn't afford training or whatever. And but I went back my senior year of high school, and I went to go to California Street, and they weren't there. So like somewhere within that time, they went from California Street to the Japanese Center in Lodi.
And just to kind of just clarify too, this was all like no-gi at the time that I was messing with. Like honestly, like my level of knowledge of jiu-jitsu was like I didn't know. Like we used to call it gi-less, and I didn't even really look at it from a gi standpoint. I wasn't really into the Gracie thing. Like I was more of a boxing fan as a kid, if anything. And then I definitely saw like UFC here and there with my friends, but I probably didn't get into UFC like as even a cursory fan until like 2000, like late 2005.
Yeah.
Just because I had seen a couple fights maybe with the wrestling team kind of thing. Like it wasn't really my thing at the time.
Yeah. And even back in the day, I remember when I first went in, you never had a gi on. Like there were guys that were in the gi and belted and this and that. Ernest used to wear his gi, but like you and Bobby would always come in, and neither one of you guys would wear a gi.
And then that's kind of like, so then off of the Japanese center, I went a handful of times. I can't remember exactly how many times, but mostly with Bobby. Sometimes JC would be there. And then sometimes I'd see you on the side or whatnot.
Yeah.
And there was a couple times maybe that we rolled, or I'm not even sure, at the Japanese center. Yeah. You would know better than me. But then mostly I didn't even drive myself there ever. Like I would just go with Bobby as a training partner essentially because he wanted to stay in shape and then was considering fighting. JC, like I said, was getting into it. So I just go with them hit and miss because Bobby was always like, he didn't know. He was always staying active, but he didn't know exactly when he was going to fight. So he would kind of dabble here and there, and then he kind of turn up the heat and do it more days. And I didn't go with him every time, but I went with him a lot. Yeah. And then from there, it kind of stopped for a second, and then that's when they moved over to the other spot. Mm-hmm. And then I was just doing it hit and miss, but I would always go with Bobby. And a lot of the time, once again, I just looked at it from the standpoint, I'm staying in shape, getting better as a grappler. Yeah. And these guys, some of these older heads are like I would go against, you guys just mentioned him on the last podcast. I don't know why I can't think of the guy that rode all four corners.
Oh, Chuck Walker.
Chuck Walker, love the guy. Like I remember like the first couple times going into, I don't know if I ever saw him at the Japanese center. I can't remember, but I remember the first couple times just going in there with a gi now because at this point now, I would go enough hit and miss where then somehow Eric just gave me a gi one day and a white belt and just said, here you go. Yeah. And then, so I would just bring it and I would only put it on when they forced me to. And so there was a handful of times, I swear the first couple times, Chuck Walker just handed me my ass, like I gave him the old wrestler pressure and like gave him a little bit of a hard time, but not much. And then he just killed me, killed me.
It was different though because like you didn't really have a gi, right? And it was kind of cool, like it was accepted at least at the time to wear just a gi top and a belt.
It was really loose. Like I didn't even commit fully to like go in there. Like it was like I was real hit and miss, and I only really trained when Bobby was gearing up. Yeah, I just wanted to be a part of his training team in some way from grappling, and he allowed that, and so that was cool. Yeah, I always felt like, obviously, I felt like I was getting better with all these bodies around. That was nice. Oh, yeah. But really didn't look at it as a commitment, went back and forth. And then a lot of the time, my mentality, unfortunately, which I look back on now is just straight dumb, but like my mentality was like, all right, wrestling works all the time, every time, and I'm using the motherfucker. And, you find out real quick, like, that's not the way to go about it. Yeah. But anyway, so from there, then it was just like real sporadic forever. You know what I mean? Like, just real sporadic because Bobby never really committed 100%. You had a lot of injuries. Yeah. So once Shingu was over,
you had a lot of injuries too in that.
Well, yeah, but I still kind of was. I was at the time I hadn't even considered surgery, so I was still kind of training. But I was always just looking to stay in shape. So anytime Bobby dabbled in it, a handful of times a year, I'd go and do it. Get my ass kicked or get a little better. Like one time I went to Andre de Frias for a couple, like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks with Bobby here and there, a couple classes, nothing crazy. Yeah. And then Rodney's a handful of times. Yeah. And then when I lived in Berkeley in like 2011, 12 time, I went to a Krav Maga spot that happened to have jiu-jitsu a couple nights a week. And it was actually like a brown belt teaching it, well, and I would dabble. Like that was probably the fullest I ever committed to it. And that was literally for like 2 months before my next surgery.
Yeah. And the other thing too, like even back in the day,
still didn't have a gi. It was still no gi.
You were always in
I had a gi, but I never used it. Yeah.
You were always in the fight camps, Bobby and JC would be gearing up for a Stockton arena fight and you'd go over to the slaughterhouse or the ice house even back in the day with us.
On their grappling nights, or I'd do grappling and then watch some sparring. I never really sparred. It wasn't my thing. I might have done it more, but I had that. I got shot in the eye with the airsoft from my brother a long time ago in a freak accident. Of course, I wasn't wearing safety gear. So it hurt my eye, and the doctor just basically said, like, you don't want to take any more damage to your eye. Like, my second year at Delta, I wore racquetball glasses with a mask when I was wrestling, connected to my headgear. That's wild. I look like Hannibal Lecter with racquetball glasses on,
I'm just picturing Along Came Polly, dude. There's like,
and then I had, even better, I had long hair, and it was bleached because the team bleached.
Oh man, but like, I mean, you were always dabbling in some sort of grappling throughout those years.
Totally
man.
sporadically, but I always wanted to stay like sharp enough to like not lose the skills. I always felt like if you sit on the couch too long, you're gonna lose them.
Yeah,
Which I found because there was probably like the longest gap I had was probably between like 2013 and 14 to 2019,
Yeah.
And I did find like there's definitely some rust if you don't at least bust it out every now and then.
Well, but you still dabbled even then. Like
Totally.
I remember you went to Andre's with me a handful of times,
right.
and then I would always come home and work shit on you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like there was a bunch of times where we just always like brothers, like we just get down and fuck around, in somebody's living room or something.
Yeah, dude. Everyone, if you've ever been to a party with us, like you've seen
There's
it.
some rough housing every now and then.
Yeah, we always like to wrestle. But nothing wrong with that. And so, like, you finally committed to jiu-jitsu. We really got deep into it, and we started committing to our training.
So I'd say it was like basically the kind of the end of 2019. I tried in the beginning of 2019 and just couldn't quite commit again.
Yeah.
And then finally at the end of 2019, I was going real smooth. I was going consistently.
Yeah.
And then all that stuff happened with Rodney, and then COVID hit. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to lose this thing again. And you're like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
No,
if nothing else, it's going to be you and me in my garage. I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was the best thing
I
we
just
could have
fully
ever
committed
done.
at that point, and at the end of 2019, and we didn't really we slowed up a little bit at the beginning of COVID, but we got right back on it in like June.
Yeah.
And we didn't stop until like March-ish, just for a little bit.
Yeah, everything.
And it wasn't because of COVID necessarily.
Time.
We were just like busy and things were going on, and we were unsure about stuff.
I was getting married that year.
Right, yeah,
and so there was a lot of things in the works there. And COVID sucked for everybody. Let's be real, right? Like, and for us, like, something was taken from us, right? Like, for your jiu-jitsu to be taken away, and like people tell you like you'll be thrown in jail if you train jiu-jitsu. Like,
when I finally committed in my life, I'm like, holy shit,
I ain't gonna have that, bro. Like, I've had it taken away from me for injury for so many years. Like, it's I ain't gonna let the fucking government take it from me.
And when you look at it, like, I mean, this is like maybe a harsh lens, but like Dave and I have probably wasted a ton of years that we could have been getting better at grappling, or if we had fully committed, or just realized like sometimes once a week is good enough. If you could just stick with it once a week for years, you're gonna get better.
Yeah, and even going in and never leaving,
or just
right?
watching. Just like we heard that story today.
Yeah, we were talking about it with a friend today, and we were just talking like, imagine those years while my shoulder was fucked up and this and that and the other. We were still going in occasionally just to watch, right?
Yeah.
And keeping our brain there, man. Like,
so, and the reason I bring it up is just I see, now that we've opened a gym, and then I've been at a bunch of different gyms, I've seen different stories, different reasons why. And it's just like, it seems like if you could just stay grinding and either train while you're injured or at least watch and come and stay involved in some way, it seems like that's kind of the magic.
Yeah.
I know it's not really magic, but it's like, if you could just stick with it in some way, it seems like that's the way to go.
You can't ever leave it fully, man. And when you do, like, it's just that much harder to come back. Like, for some
really
people,
is.
they
really
never
is.
come back.
I can't tell you, there's like a lot of times where I stopped and started and I thought I'd never come back. Like, that's what is always amazing about Chad's story to me, is the fact that he always comes back to it. He's still a white belt. It's been a white belt forever now, how many years it is, over 15 now, right?
It's been a while.
Yeah. But he still comes back to it, and like I feel like there's gonna be one time like he's gonna finally fully commit. You know what I mean? But like the reason I bring that up is just because like you can always come back to it. It's just, it's going to be that much harder every time.
Right.
And you may have even more setbacks after that because the body's not ready, or you pushed it too much, or, whatever it is.
What I see the most common thing is people like, they're so excited to be training, they push it real hard. And then next thing you know, they're injured or something along those lines happen. And it's like, if you could just ease into it, right? Like you were saying, just that once a week, right? Just stay consistent with that.
And you don't have to go and, try to go 100% live, like just work on the technique, like try to go real light. Like that may be more beneficial than anything,
Yeah.
You don't have to beat the body up too bad. Like, don't get me wrong. If you're out of shape, like it's all gonna be tight and sore,
Yeah.
but you know, you don't have to feel too beat up.
I've talked to a lot of grapplers, and it's amazing. Like, I'll talk to some, and you know, they've never experienced these crazy injuries, right?
Right.
And they just stayed consistent, and they're great grapplers. You know, it's just consistency.
It's a consistency, and there's just that experience. You know, the more you can gain in that area, it's very helpful with, you know, many different body types, all sorts of different scenarios. But yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Just to stay consistent and get those experiences on the mat, you know?
So during COVID, we got some mats going in the garage, right? And we didn't care if it was me and you.
And a lot of times it was,
you know? Yeah. And
I thank Dave for that, because like I was, you know, at the time, like, I mean, I've always essentially been like way behind Dave from a jiu-jitsu technical standpoint, because for so long I was either sporadic or just trying to use wrestling, never looking at it as something I'm going to do long term for whatever reason, you know, ego or just being an idiot. But rolling with you, like, you just have amazing patience, because like, you know, I was a freaking, you know, spazzy white belt a lot of the time, and you're just over here kind of allowing me to move and get it, and going hard with me, but not too hard, and like beating me and showing me like, hey, I'm beating you here. Like, you really need to work on this. And then you would gladly, you know, armbar me 30 times in a row. But, you know, we're working on it, you know, and you're really good at arm bars. So I felt like that gave me, like, finally now, like, we're, from a technical standpoint, we're a lot closer than we've ever been.
Yeah.
And I feel like it only makes us sharper. And like, you just had all this patience with me, and like, we've been through, you know, like, you know,
we've had
just
some crazy,
a lot of rolls. Yeah, we've been through a lot of rolls, a lot of experience with each other. And like, I just feel like you've only made me better. And I've just always been grateful that I've had somebody who's like fairly good at something and is able to teach it, and then willing to like go, you know, live with me a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like, you're one of my favorite people I've ever trained with. Like, because you don't slow down the pace, right? The pace is always there, but like, as you get more technical with it, it's like you're seeing this development in your game, and like, it's really evolving into like a high level jiu-jitsu player. That pace is always going to be there. I know it.
Yeah.
But now the technique is like really flowing out of you with it. And you add your wrestling, you know, and you got these little wrestling secrets. Sometimes you'll bust out on me, and I'm just like, what in the fuck was that? And you're like, just trying something out. So, but you're a high level grappler, man. If you talk to anybody around this area that's rolled with Greg, he's a handful to deal with on any level. So,
but there are some really talented guys out there. I just want to see the 209 like really thrive and get better. And I think that, I think we're probably in good hands with some of these younger guys.
Oh yeah, man. The
and we just got to keep growing
on.
this thing. Keep growing this thing, make everybody better, and just like try to make everybody sharper, you know, together.
Oh yeah. And we've grinded it out, and COVID ended, right? We never really went back to a gym, right? We never joined in, like, you know, and
for the longest I never really considered it, to be honest. But then, like, you know, at some point I feel like you got to try different bodies and stuff, and it was just hard for us to get consistently people during that time. Right.
And somehow during those 3.5, 4 years of doing that, we kind of grew it into what we have now.
Right. Which is, a lot better than it was, and more bodies. But we've had a lot of people just come through, I feel like, that we've, that either have kept doing it or we've affected in some way. But like during that time, we did a lot of rolls at Lynn's too. Bobby and I would go a lot. You went a few times. And that really opened my eyes, because like the guys that Lynn had over at his garage, like real good. They were from different areas of Stockton, and that was just really fun rolls. And I feel like I learned a ton, because they were just all high level, and I couldn't get away with any garbage.
No, those were some of the best rolls.
I feel like that
COVID.
made me like quiet, like that helped me during that time progress, maybe like more than the average person was. Just because I had more training opportunity, maybe than some of the people at that time.
Oh, 100%, man. And we were doing the rolls at Lynn's and at my house, right? Going back and forth. And we're getting to test different bodies. And then, you know, things start to open up slowly, and Stockton Jiu-Jitsu, you know, became family to us and allowed us to go train with them quite a bit.
Lynn kind of fostered that relationship, and then Bobby started going, and then I was like, I might as well. And I really had no intention of trying to get a belt or anything like that. Like, in fact, it really kind of blew me away, you know, like when I went to Stockton Jiu-Jitsu that they gave me that purple, I was just like, you know.
Well,
I was completely like just. I just was like, it's not something I had anticipated. I didn't even think I was at that level, and they gave that to me, and like I was like, wow, that's incredible. It was really incredible.
Purple belt for me, like I think of it as a really like it's a tough belt, right? Because now
it's my favorite belt so far.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I like them all,
Yeah.
and I've never really been into belts, not even really now. But if I had to identify one belt at this point, I would say that.
It's where people really start to find their games, right? The blue belt, you're still picking up things. Timing is a big thing at blue belt.
Oh yeah.
But once you get to purple belt, you got good timing. You should have a good set of moves in your repertoire,
and a basic skill set.
Yeah, you should be able to defend yourself, and then
we're at this point we're talking about gi because we were basically we were only Dave and I were only specifically training gi for about 2-3 years straight.
Yeah.
Like now we mix in no gi every now and then, but
yeah,
we're I fell in love with the gi because of Dave at that time, just before COVID and after COVID. And now I'm like, it's hard for me to come out of the gi, but I mean, I like them both. Don't get me wrong, no gi takes me back to my wrestling days sometimes.
Oh yeah,
and it's fun, but the gi is like, I know there's a lot of purists out there, but I like the gi.
Yeah,
that's gonna be my first like go to.
The other thing, like, okay, so there's a lot of popular things nowadays. There's a lot of guys getting popular on the scenes with no gi, and it seems the fad is no gi, right? If that's what is the most marketable. Gi jiu-jitsu still trying to develop and get more marketable.
As long as people are doing jiu-jitsu, go for it. I'm not going to tell somebody to do one or the other. That's kind of on you to decide. But I would say try them both.
Yeah,
I would definitely say that, and I would say try them both quite a few times, because sometimes it takes a while for things to be like, for you to either get comfortable with it or kind of change your mind on it or look at it from a different standpoint, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a guy in the no-gi jiu-jitsu scene. I think I've sent you his stuff before, but I think his name's like Jeffrey Rial or something like that. He's also a grappler that has one hand, right? But he's primarily a no-gi guy.
Right.
You've developed into one of the best gi guys, like, and dude, like,
I don't know
you tie people's hands up, and, like, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
but we don't even know if that's, it's probably not legal in an actual tournament.
Why
some
not?
of the stuff. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure, there's going to be an issue if I were to do that, but I definitely in here, and like from a self-defense standpoint, I definitely can tie up the nub in a lot of different cloth. Yeah. So I do like to play for it. Like, if I were in a situation where somebody was wearing a hoodie or a long sleeve or something, like there definitely is a way that I could tie them up potentially for even a little bit, depending on how long the cloth is or how strong it is wrapped around and whatnot. Yeah,
but like it's impressive, dude. Like to really see like your game development and like you have your own style of things
and just doing jiu-jitsu this last 4 or 5 years almost, like fully committed with you, like I've developed a lot more dexterity in my like non-dominant side in my foot and my leg, my left leg, and then I've developed more dexterity on my right side where I don't have a hand. Like I've always had good dexterity and movement and stuff, but like I've developed a lot better like a mind muscle connection on that side at like all parts of it. And it's only because of jiu-jitsu. That's the only thing that I've been doing different. You know what I mean? And so I think I'm able to utilize the nub even better than before. Like it's only getting a little better. Yeah, and dude, you're tough to deal with, man. But Dave's being nice.
No, so recently, we opened up our gym back in about May, June, and shortly after that, Jiu-Jitsu World League came around, and one of our students wanted to compete. That kind of got the ball rolling, and we had
Dave's always on me to compete. Lynn is always on me to compete. There's always a handful of people who in my life like are always asking me to compete, and it's just like I've competed a lot already in my life. I kind of look at it like that, like not like I'm scared or anything. And so I kind of know like I haven't competed a whole lot at these different belts, so I definitely need to get it in. Yeah. And so now I'm just kind of gonna pick it here and there when I'm feeling pretty healthy, and that just all kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And I hadn't competed. It was like literally 17 years. It was what Rocky was talking about on the last one was the last time that I competed in a jiu-jitsu
2007
match. You know what I mean? That wasn't even a tournament.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it had been a very long time. Like, and even, okay, that was probably one of your last competitions because you weren't wrestling at that time.
No, yeah, it was like, yeah.
So, I mean, it had really been a long time since you got on the mats and you went on.
Competed in anything really other than a running event.
Yeah.
That's it.
And you went on and you had a pretty good performance, man. And talk about like going into those matches, like, you know, obviously, you know, you haven't competed at the brown belt level, so you're in a higher level. You're in a higher weight class as well. You were in my weight class.
They didn't have anybody in the weight class that I would have gone. So I just, you know, I didn't really watch my weight at all. So I was like, you know, I was closer to their weight than I had anticipated, but I drank a lot of water that day. But yeah, I was definitely lighter.
Yeah.
That part of me, I wasn't really tripping because like as you know, a lot of the time, like I roll with bigger guys. So I feel like I'm not that I'm going to beat them or win, but I feel like, all right, I could probably figure out their pressure and strength and, you know, be like water or do just enough. Because of just, I kind of have that confidence because I always roll with like bigger dudes normally. It just kind of naturally happens because like just in even like wrestling or jiu-jitsu rooms, normally like the smaller guys.
Well, not only that, it's your first competition.
Yeah, there's not like, I don't know. Yeah, so normally I just end up going with the bigger guys. And I do like going with the bigger guys. And I mean, when I say bigger, it's 10, 15, 20 pounds, you know. But even 40, 50, I'm down for. I don't mind. But yeah, so anyway, sorry, we got sidetracked.
No, it's all good.
We did. It was like what 180,
181.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I did that, and then it was in the gi, and then what was your question again?
So just going into that tournament, like it had been a very long time since you competed,
right?
Like, so you know, testing the body. You're older too, right?
So
like
I wasn't nervous because I just already am like good with the fact like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to compete regardless of how I feel or what's going on. Let's see what happens. I was more like, there was like maybe a little bit of excitement because now I'm going against brown belts who are competing. I kind of want to know where you fall. Like if I really am a brown belt, like, you know, I want to know that for certain. I think that's one way you can find out. I mean, I guess it depends on the tournament, but that's one way you could do it, you know, maybe for peace of mind. So I looked at it more like that, like from an exciting standpoint, like, all right, let's see where I'm at, you know, like maybe I need to work on shit. Like maybe I need to completely reassess whatnot.
Yeah, and you did well.
So then I competed, and like obviously, like I hadn't competed, and I did not anticipate the grips in that way. You know, like I'm just so used to competing wrestling, and then that one competition was a no-gi. That was my first, so that definitely held me up. But we kind of figured it out. Dave was coaching me. He definitely helped me a lot. And figured it out and did just enough points wise to win 2 matches, go 2-on-1.
Right.
That third guy was really good. Like,
dude,
he was legit as a motherfucker.
Ooh, yeah, he was really good.
Nothing. Yeah, I mean he would have beat me on any day.
Yeah.
I was tired as shit, but I have no excuses. He would have beat me on. I'm pretty sure any day.
Oh yeah, his technique was real sharp on everything. His positioning was real good.
Shout out to him. He knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, he's probably got his black belt soon. So. He was a really high level grappler, and yeah, man. But it's impressive.
And so were the other guys. The other guys were good too. I mean, like I said, like only points. You know.
Yeah, it's impressive though to see you like go into a competition after that long of a time off, to do that well in a high division that's above your weight class. That's your first gi competition, and to place second place, dude, that's no joke in an organization, especially like Jiu-Jitsu World League, man.
Well, thank you, Dave. But I mean, a lot of it goes to you, man. You're my main training partner and my main coach. Obviously, like all the Stockton Jiu-Jitsu guys are great bodies to work with, and they definitely have helped me along. And then obviously, like having Bobby around has been very helpful. And someone like Anthony gives me a lot of confidence. You know, he's rolling with him, he is he's an animal, extremely good grappler and very, very strong. And so like he definitely builds my confidence that I'm not going to meet somebody too much, too much of a mauler than him. You know what I mean?
It's hard to find him. It's hard to find him. I'll say that. But man, dude, like you've had a great run, and now we got the gym going. We got a lot of things coming up with that.
Heck yeah.
We're doing a self-defense women's seminar.
We are. It's
And
gonna be fun.
a Roll for a Cure, the 26th of this month. We're going to
for
be
breast cancer.
Yeah,
Pump up the
benefiting
cure.
a nonprofit organization that works locally in the shelters and helps women out with self-diagnosis and self-checks, and also getting them the proper care and things that women need. So it's a really awesome thing we're doing here at Effective Arts, man. And like, I can't tell people enough out there, like, if you want to do something in life, like, do it. And then if you do it with people that you love and that you like want to do it with. Don't try to partner with some asshole or anything like that. Like, have your friends around you, and like, that's the best way to build something, because like you look back over the years, man, we've been friends for almost 20 years now, and you look back and we're only doing more and more, and like, this thing's bigger than both of us.
Right. Yeah. We want to, like you say all the time, we want to try to impact the community, and that really is our goal in some way, either with nonprofits and fundraisers, or helping kids out, or trying to get somebody better at just being more equipped to defend themselves.
Right.
In any way or most situations. But yeah, dude, you're an amazing person to work with. And I think, like, because we've known each other for so long and we've been through all sorts of, we've lived together. Yeah. There's like, we've been through all sorts of different situations. Yeah. Like, I think that our relationship is like, can withstand, any kind of business pressures might be or whatnot, and, we're going to be friends no matter what.
Yeah.
So
the crazy thing is, man, like, I couldn't see myself like doing this thing without you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I'm just glad you're here, man. I wouldn't be doing it at all if you weren't here. I mean, you're definitely the face and you're the motor, and I'm just here to help and like do the best I can to assist you in any way and try to make this thing like legit,
Yeah. And man, dude, like I appreciate you being on this episode and like being a part of this, and like, dude, like, you're such an awesome like friend, but like just a human being in general. Like, you fucking have such a strong mind. Like, when we were hiking up Half Dome in Yosemite, man, like, I saw something else in you that I've never like seen before. Like, for real, dude. Like,
I appreciate that. I mean,
like, your will is like crazy. And
I attribute a lot of it to wrestling, but like, I've just always kind of been that way too.
Yeah.
Like, when some people say like you're born with it, like there are some things, like I may not have had a hand, but like, I definitely got a lot of will.
Yeah.
Good. It may be good, bad, or ugly sometimes. I use it in the wrong way sometimes, but it can definitely be helpful in like long, hard, arduous situations.
Right.
When physically.
100%, man. Like, I'm over here. I'm dying, going down the mountain, and dude, you were just like walking so casually. Like, your mind was just like, yeah, man, I'm tired too, but I just keep going. I'm like, damn, bro, like. You got a whole different like Mamba mentality thing going on in there. But man, I love you to death, man. And I just want to give you a couple minutes if you want to shout anybody out or shout any events or anything that we got going on. The floor is completely yours.
For sure. Yeah, thank you, Dave, for doing this. Yeah, man. I mean, grappling has been fun, and it's like it's my exercise. It's my obsession. I really like it. I recommend it to anybody. And just if you're thinking about doing it, give it a try somewhere, anywhere. If you haven't done it in a long time, go back to it, definitely. And then just like, this business thing is awesome, and I just hope to keep growing it.
Greg's always like a good training partner to train with, so he'll give you a good look if you got competitions coming up. Greg's always down to give it 100%. So come try us out. Other than that, man, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you, Greg, for being on.
Yep. Thank you. Hopefully it's all right, guys.
Don't forget to download each and every episode off of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere where you watch podcasts. We are out there. Other than that, this is Dave, and we are out.
This is Grapplers Talk.